This is concept 4 of review rounds, and this is meant to address a lot of the feedback that I received from the first 3. It's kind of scattered in that it's many different pieces of it. It doesn't show the full picture. So after this round, I'm going to go back and walk through the entire thing and make sure that every part of the potential flow makes sense and that it works well with other future work like the merge request restructure. So half of these things might not be necessary for review rounds, but I wanted to make sure that we had it somewhere. So one of the things that came up frequently from the feedback I last received was that my merge requests page was less than ideal. Again, I have this badge here that shows you that you have 3 merge requests that your attention is required on. And that could mean that you have been requested to review someone else's merge request. It could mean that someone has reviewed your merge request and requested changes or not approved it. Or it could mean that you've created a merge request, it's gotten all the approvals, but it still isn't merged. And that's this example right here. So it's been approved and it's ready, but maybe your pipeline failed or you need to do something else before it will be merged. Or maybe someone forgot to merge it. So it's coming back to you because you need to do something else to get it merged. So there's this badge here that says 3 because you have 3 merge requests to look at. That hasn't changed. You can also filter if you only want to know which review requests have come in. You can click on that and it would show you just this top one, or you could click on authored by me and it would show you these last 2. And then if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll see all of the other merge requests that you've authored or reviewed. But these ones are not actually requiring your attention, so they do not affect the badge at the top. Hopefully that makes sense. And obviously this design is not final, it's hideous. It's just a way to kind of let you know what the status of these are. And the statuses are also subject to change. What else? The adding of reviewers has gone through a few iterations. So this was one of my earlier concepts where it would take the required code owners and approval rules and pre-populate the roles in the sidebar. And then you would click on each one and it would show you the drop down with all of the available options, and you could select from there, and then eventually you'd end up with this, and it would all be great. It would work really well. A few problems with that. One is not everyone requires, some people set up code owners and approval rules without making them actually required. So how can we still use this functionality in some kind of way without forcing everyone to require these rules? Additionally, we have many cases where the same group of people can approve multiple rules and code owner rules, and there's a general duplication of sections within code owners. So take, for example, this screenshot from a merge request I was looking at recently, and you see backend, front end, merge requests, front end, front end. And there's 3 front ends. It's the same people, it's the same group, and it's been, once this person approved it, they approved all 3 of those rules. So how can we deduplicate those in a way that makes sense and will kind of, I don't want to say will scale, but I want to deduplicate it at the root level, not like figure out if it's the same name and group and like combine them and remove them from there. Ideally, I opened an issue for this already, but so this is the current file configuration for code owners, and this is coming from GitLab. So we have the section named front end, and then you have a new line with every single path that matches or that the front end team can approve, and then the group, which is the front end maintainers, and it's duplicated on all of these lines. Ideally, it would be great if we could change that configuration to look more like this. So you've still got your section name, and then everyone in that section is in this group. So you'd put all your users on the next line, and it would be this group and any additional users. That hasn't changed. And then you just list all the paths after that. So every time a merge request touches one of these paths, one time that group would show up as an affected code owner rule. So in this example, it would only show up one time, and it would list app assets, EE app assets, and spec front end. If that was the case, then maybe we could do that sidebar proposal where you just see front end once and then you select it and you see those 22 people that show up here. The other the other edge case that I mentioned was that not everyone requires all of these approval rules to be met. So in the case of GitLab, if you create a merge request and, let's say all of these items do show up in the approval widget, you don't need to necessarily assign all these approvals because they're optional, and only one general approval is required. So you probably don't want to see these options all the time in the reviewers panel. So in that case, something maybe we could do is when you click, when you click this add reviewer button, you see that pop up that will tell you, you can add a comment with your review request, but maybe we can also add the optional role. So if you want Casey to review backend, ideally Casey would show up in the code owners, he'd be part of the code owners backend maintainer group. So when you select the role here, that's the only one that would show up, and you would select it, and then you could add another one, and maybe the next person is a front end code owner, and so the optional role would show up as front end. And then once you go through and select all of those people, then you would still end up in a state like this where you have every user assigned to a role of sorts. And building on that, quick actions came up, and this is something that we definitely need to address for internal team members, especially because we're big power users of the quick actions, and for good reason. They're awesome. I don't know what the possibilities are for here if we can do multi-line quick actions, but it could go something like this where you do /assign reviewer, and this already exists, and then you type in the username, and then maybe you do a space and you add the role. And these could also be a drop down in the same way that we have quick actions that will autocomplete. And then on the next line, you can add your comment. And ideally, when you submit this comment, it would be like adding this with 2 different users, and it would then pre-populate, or not pre-populate, it would then add those users to the sidebar and request their attention for that given merge request. So that's code owners, quick actions, non-required approvals, my merge requests, and the final piece that is not necessary for review rounds, but how fun would this be, is building conventional comments directly into the product to help structure code reviews, and maybe to give more granular options to resolvable or required threads. So we have this option that says all threads must be resolved. Maybe they don't all need to be resolved. Maybe we could build in some easy to use options that make it so not every thread needs to be resolved. This is a kind of a tricky one to solve because I definitely want to avoid having a bunch of extra buttons that's like, does this need to be resolved, and then select why it needs to be resolved, and then mark it as blocking, and just put all this extra work on the author's point of view, not only to click in and figure out exactly what that comment means, but to also have that marking something as blocking, like you need to resolve this before you can merge this, is sort of a bold statement in some people's minds, and I don't want to add that extra pressure onto the author to make that call every single time. Every time they write a comment, they need to decide if it's blocking, if it needs to be addressed, if it needs to be answered. I think that's going to put a lot of extra time on the code review and a lot of extra pressure on that reviewer. So maybe we could give that option to companies if they want to add, all of the different types of comments that No, forget that. Forget that for now. Okay, so conventional comments, though, is really useful not just for blocking versus non-blocking, but it helps to build a cohesive code review list of comments, basically, particularly for non-native English speakers or non-native speakers of the language of the company. It helps people speak in a more polite way. It helps the author understand. It helps the reviewer understand. They're just super useful. I'm not going to keep talking about that. So here's a fun little example where I've added conventional comments to the what do you call this? Toolbar of the diff comments. So this would only show up on diffs again. And when you click it, it would be kind of like, you know, the iOS bar when you're typing a text message and you can click and you can see all the extra apps that you can add that I don't think anyone uses. This would be like that, except hopefully people would use it. You click conventional comments and then this little bar would pop down. And it would stay here while you have this enabled. And then you can click on each of these button pills, whatever they are, and it would insert that conventional comment type into your into your text editor. So in this example, I clicked praise, so it would insert praise with the bold styling, and then I wrote my praise comment, and then maybe praise comments could be non-blocking, and we'd have some kind of alert here that usually shows up when you click preview anyway, especially if you add quick actions. This sort of alert shows up to tell you what quick actions will be applied when you submit the comment. In this case, I have it on the right tab. I don't know if that's possible, but it would just kind of tell the author as they're writing it that, okay, this isn't going to be blocking, because when would praise comments ever need to be blocking? Right now they are. This isn't, again, doesn't need to go into review rounds, but it's something that might be useful in the grand scheme of things. I think that covers all of the small changes that I just made. So yeah, after this I'm going to go back and make sure that the whole experience is cohesive and logical, and then we can go from there. Thanks.